Well, hello, guys. It's David Vos, and it's another beautiful day in Oklahoma. And it's been, well, it rained so hard last night. I thought it was going to drown the whole world. But now it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and the skies are clear, and it's starting to shine down from above with sunlight, and it's beautiful. I hope you're having a wonderful day. And I want to talk to you guys today about something that's important. Of course, we always talk about important things, usually. You've heard of the Bohemian Grove? What is it? Why is it we have never asked ourselves this question in depth? I mean, yeah, we got Alex Jones that went out there and filmed it, and people are like, ah, ha, ha, ha. But you'd think that with all the press that the Bohemian Grove got because of Alex Jones, that maybe somebody would have said, hey, what's going on? I mean, because there's some really crazy stuff. Some things that need to be explained. But, we shouldn't be surprised, because it doesn't matter what these people do. They seem to always just get away with it. I mean, they could, these guys could, you remember what Donald Trump said, that he could pull out his pistol and shoot somebody in the head on Fifth Avenue and get away with it. Well, I don't remember his exact words, but, and I know that, many of you are going to say, well, he was just joking or whatever. I understand. But it's still true that these guys could probably get away with just about anything. So why are they able to do the things that they're doing? Probably because they have control, and they have had. I mean, you ask yourself, how are they pulling this off? There has to be some plan. We know that there is a plan. We still talk about it. It's like, well, there must be. I don't know. We've been showing the proof. Hundreds of people. Thousands of people have been talking about. Even Joe Rogan has finally decided that maybe he's not such a vaxxer. And Russell Brand and others are speaking out. But, all this that they're getting away with, and no one says anything. Fox News just sits there and smiles and says, well, today in the news, another 40 billion people have just went out and got their thing. And aren't we so happy about that? And, somebody in the football team deciding that they don't want to get their thing. And so they're going to... I heard, who is that? That guy on ESPN, it's a black guy, what's his name? Can't remember. He used to be doing a show with Max Hellerman. What is his name? A Smith, or I can't remember his name. But anyway, doesn't matter who he is, guys. I'm just saying, this is a very popular sports announcer who just the other day didn't like Max Hellerman, so he threw a big fit and pushed and threw a fit and got him off the show. Well, the ratings went down. So he seems to be like a very proud guy. He wanted the whole show to himself, and he wanted to be the star, I guess. And I don't know how he pulled that off. And I was thinking, I wonder how he pulled that off, right? I mean, why is he so... Because it wasn't him getting all the ratings. So how is it that he managed to get this other guy, Max Hellerman, off his show? What kind of clout does he have? Well, today I noticed that, and forgive me because I don't know all these guys' names. I don't have any, file here in front of me, and I don't have a secretary to go and look it up for you. But all this is from my memory and just things that I see during the day, and then we talk about. But I may have figured out why this man has so much clout. He brown noses, if you know what I mean. There is I don't know if it's football or something like that, probably basketball, football, I don't know. But there is this guy that is refusing to play this season because they want him to get a VAX. And he's refusing. Kind of like, remember the guy that kept kneeling, right, during the national anthem, and he got world acclaim, and a lot of people were like, he should just kneel and salute the flag, doggone it, that's just not right, he has no right to protest. And others who were like, let him do whatever he wants. But of course the liberals wanted to trash the America that we know and the flag, and it's all a big psyop because there's a lot of things that we should trash, but it's them we should trash. And then they're turning around and making us feel like it was America that was bad, but it was just these bums that led us down this path of evil. So, but if you are able to get out and hobnob with the elite and pretend that everything is wonderful. I noticed Tyson Fury just won the heavyweight championship of the world, and I love watching him, and he's quite a character, but he's constantly wearing the mask. He is a complier. He doesn't like non-compliance. In other words, he brown noses. So this guy, I remember his name, Stephen Smith. So he gets on there and he rages and stomps his feet and pounds his fist and ridicules this guy that doesn't want to get the VAX. I mean, just tears him a new one. And I'm thinking, is that really what you believe? That people who want to take control of their own body, who do not want a experimental gene therapy, which, even that, I don't like saying that, and people that say that, to me, that's a little bit of, I think they're complying by saying stuff like that. And I just did it too. Excuse me. Let me retrace. Okay. Why are we calling it an experimental gene therapy? Therapy connotates healing. So what you're really saying, this is an experimental healing. No, this is not experimental healing. These are not experiments in the sense of they don't know what they're doing, and they're just trying to help us. And they made a mistake, and they tried to heal us, but of course it backfired. No. Stop the brown nosing. This is an experimental death treatment. They're trying to see how quickly they can. Okay, I better not say any more. So, when I look at Stephen A. Smith, go on and carry on about this, and with theatrics and with every art of deception, and bringing emotional intimidation into the mix. It's almost as if like he's paid because he's black to. You talk about an Uncle Tom. I mean, trying to persuade other minorities to be, why are you so scared of this little VAX? Why don't you just go out? And not only that, you silly people, I'm angry with you. Why, you're destroying the world. If it weren't for you, we'd all be just fine. So it's all brown-nosing to keep your job. Well, in this case, Stephen A. Smith is not trying to keep his job. He's trying to be powerful. Well, yeah, first to keep his job, but then to be on top. And he knows that the only way he can be on top of ESPN is to follow the guidelines and don't express any of your real opinions, but lie to the public. It doesn't matter. They're just peasants. Bunch of idiots. Tell them whatever they want you to say because you're a stupid, dumb, empty vessel that has no thoughts or beliefs of his own. The only thing that Stephen A. Smith believes is he wants to be powerful, he wants to be famous, he wants to be popular, and he doesn't want Max Kellerman to be on his show because he wants to be the star. And of course, the best way to do that is to go find the most important person in the world, or the elite that run the world, that give you all the favors, and say, oh, you guys are so wonderful, those terrible people that don't like you. So we see is that the world is being run by people who are all trying to lie and see who can lie the hardest and the deepest, because they know that that's what's going to get them ahead. If you can get the elite closer to their goal of total insanity and destruction of the entire world. Now, I suppose they don't realize it. That means the destruction not only of mankind, maybe they're too stupid to understand that, but their own race and their own people and their own families and in the earth and the world itself is going to perish if we continue on this course. You'd think somebody would be smart enough to understand that. So who are these people and why are they doing it? Well, as you guys know, I used to be a Jehovah's Witness. So I know a little bit about politics. It's really interesting because Jehovah's Witnesses say that they're pacifists. They won't go to war. And they claim that they don't get involved in politics. And yet Eisenhower, a president who also was a member of the Bohemian Grove, was a Jehovah's Witness, attended meetings when he was young. His grandma took him. And his mother, I think, or his grandmother was a Jehovah's Witness all of her life. And, I don't think he attended the meetings, the Jehovah's Witness meetings, when he was president. But it's interesting, but it seems like all of the elite members of the Bohemian Grove that run the world all seem to be like representatives of each of these things. Like a Mormon, you got to have Romney, you got to have a Jehovah's Witness in there, you got to have, a New Ager in there or something. There's going to be and I don't suppose that it's just one of each, so we can have a variety and various differences, so we can all revel in our different cultures and learn about each other. No, it's not like that. It's that they have created all this confusion in the world, these different groups that have different and various beliefs for different reasons. And then they put one of their men in there as plants. That's what I think. But how could they get the entire world to conform? Well, like I said, I was a Jehovah's Witness and I watched how they do it. They're the best politicians. All they follow is policy. They don't follow the scriptures. This is what all the churches do and governments. It's a deception that they say they're following rules, and of course rules are for our own good, but behind the scenes they don't give a crap about rules. The rules are for you, not for them. They're making rules to keep you down so you can't accomplish anything. But meanwhile, so you can't steal, but they're stealing your money and your property and the resources of the earth, and they're stealing your mind, your children, your future, your lives, everything. But we're not allowed to say anything on YouTube or Google about that. We can't complain or debate any of this. But politics is when a bunch of guys get together and they find out not that what they're doing in this little club is, oh, we've got the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God, and we're all full of integrity and love. No, that's not what this is about. It doesn't matter what group. These elite can join various groups. They can decide they're Muslim, or they can decide they're Jehovah's Witnesses, or they're Mormons, or whatever, and they're all going to the same parties at the Bohemian Grove. And guess what they do there? They have drunken, gay orgies. Yeah, we're going to we're going to tell you what goes on there, guys. But it's about everybody that's in these kinds of groups are there to get power, and they want to have fun. Now, normally a person on their own would feel maybe they were doing something wrong if they were lying to get power, or lying to get money, or deceiving, or manipulating, or raping someone. They would feel terrible, right? Human beings. But these guys all get together, and they have an entire elite group of people that pat each other on the back. And they say, oh, we're the elite. We are the gods. We know, of course, that there's nothing wrong. We can do anything we want. These silly slaves, they all know that the goal, the plan of the highest elite is to destroy the world. Now, they only know that tentatively. What they really know is that they're going to get favors. They're going to have fun to start with at the party, because everybody's going to get to do any nasty, wicked, evil, indulgent thing that they want to do. So that's a draw right there. But then, if you're willing to humiliate yourself and run around naked and have sex with other men and bring in prostitutes and drink until you pass out and sign, agreements and make deals with people that would harm the American people, and behind our backs in a secret grove, if you're willing to do that, it's because you want to get power. In other words, you watching them humiliate themselves, and you're humiliating yourself, so that you both now feel like it's okay. No matter what you do, your little evil drunken party and your little plans, well, it makes it easier, because you're just all a bunch of the boys, and just having a little party, and it's just fun. And hey, we all know that, because they were laughing and you were laughing, and so it seemed like it was all right. And then they have these rituals called the Cremation of Care, which, think about it, what are they cremating? Why are they calling it the Cremation of Care? Because they have worries. Now, what do you think those worries might be? Maybe guilt, because they're harming other people. So these businessmen have worked their way through the ranks and become CEOs and powerful people. Maybe they feel a little guilty about hurting other people. So what do? They all get together around June, July in California, near San Francisco. All the gay people are down there, remember? And all of our presidents are gay, by the way. You'll find that out here in a minute. We're going to read some stuff about this. But when you're around other people that say, that's wrong, you're bad, they got that frown on their face. They take you in the back room and they have a meeting, right? And they disfellowship you. Like, that's what happened to me with another group of people, kind of like this, a little secret society did that to me. Okay, so I got to experience why, and, because you start off and they invite you in. And it's not because, you've been so spiritual and we're all trying to serve the Lord, and so we have an organization which helps us, serve the Lord. No. This organization isn't made for that. The organizations are made to be able to continue to do whatever it is that they want to do, that they wouldn't never be able to do without a pack of guys getting together and supporting each other. So, for instance, if you wanted to go out and get away with some crime, you couldn't do it if everybody was against you. However, it was all the elite, powerful people were committing the same crime, then you could get away with it. Now, that means you get away with it, but what about how you feel about yourself? So then you have meetings where, you join first. They don't tell you everything. They just offer you a little power, a little fun. Do you want to be a member? And everybody's like, oh, sure, And pretty soon you're having fun and laughing, and people are drinking, and then somebody gets naked and you're like, what's going on? And they get you naked. Now you're embarrassed. You don't want anybody to tell anybody on the outside world. And because you feel so ashamed You probably, when you're by yourself, you think, well, maybe I'm doing wrong. But when you're with this group, like a pack of wolves, you're brave because they pat you on the back and say, listen, we're going to teach you a secret. Here's the secret. The secret is that everything we've told the world is all a lie because it's the noble lie. And these are the peasants and they don't know any better. They're too stupid to understand. So we just tell them lies. You see, they ain't smart enough to live. We're the elite. We're going to give you a certain secret, gives you the power to be, live forever and don't worry about these peasants. The world's going to, if the world was run by these ignorant peasants, why look at them? They're so stupid. If we let them do whatever they want, the world would probably perish from overpopulation. We've got to kill these people. And somehow they keep explaining with some contorted nonsense. They convince you with propaganda until you begin to think, okay, I guess it's right to do wrong and wrong to do right. And, it's weird. So they all get together and they convince each other with they got books and pamphlets and secret teachings and initiations. And they slowly, by offering you power, then giving you more responsibility, and then with more responsibility, they dangle more power and authority if you want that, but you have to be more submissive and do what they say, and your mind cannot handle this unless you believe that what you're doing is okay. So you have to convince yourself, and they're helping you. And so the world then is run by a pack of wolves. That's what it is. But is that really what it is? I mean, what really makes these people do what they're doing? And what are they really doing? Well, I want to show you a little article here on the Bohemian Grove. And I have a couple things I want to read to you because there's something going on here. And it's not just the Bohemian Grove. It says Bohemian Grove is a restricted 2,700 acre campground at Bohemian Avenue in Monte Rio, California, United States, belonging to a private San Francisco-based gentlemen's club known as the Bohemian Club. By the way, the Bohemian Grove is what we've all heard about, where they do their rituals and stuff. But at the Grove, they claim they're just out there to have fun. See, that's just recreation. That's camping. That's just gay, naked parties where you drink and drop and laugh and, yeah, you might talk a little business, but it's mostly having fun. So no big deal, right? Well, there's also a thing called the Bohemian Club. And my friends, that is in, I think, San Francisco. It's a Masonic hall. So these are Masons. They're all Masons. And you can't join the club unless you're a Mason. Now, I've never found out whether or not, you can do all kinds of research. You're not going to find any proof that Trump's ever joined the Freemasons. He certainly does flash signs, the little OK sign all the time, which we'll talk about that some time. But we know that Trump was very connected with Nixon, who also attended the Bohemian Grove. One of the reasons why I believe Trump has not got any ties to any of these groups, even though we do know he attended the Power of Positive Norman Vincent Peale church. He called that his church for a long time. But he's one of these people that pretends he believes in anything. He doesn't believe in some sort of Pentecostal, Christian evangelist type religion. And yet he has some of these evangelists coming down and praying for him. I think it's all for show, to be honest with you, because I really don't believe that Trump goes by that. He's got weird, ancient, esoteric furniture and statues and symbols all over his gold-plated Fifth Avenue tower, mansion, castle. So, and he's gone to all the colleges and he's been hobnobbing with Epstein and the Clintons and everybody else. Come on, he had to have been friends with these people. We know that Nixon said he would be president. And that's important because Nixon decided not to run for president as long as Ronald Reagan, they made a deal at this Bohemian Grove that one would run for president, the other one would not run, as long as the other one was running. So Nixon and Reagan, both Republicans at the Bohemian Grove, made a deal. It has nothing to do with you, the people, voting. They made the deal who was going to be president. And by the way, all the other presidents, like Jimmy Carter, every president for the last, I don't know how many years, since 100 years, I think, have all been members of the Bohemian Grove. And that's Republicans and Democrats alike. Friends, if you think that Ronald Reagan was a great and wonderful man, you're mistaken. And what we're going to, that's why I'm doing this today. I want you to understand these elite, just like Jehovah's Witnesses and their policies have nothing to do with the Bible. And, you know, they've been taken over lock, stock, and barrel by the Freemasons or the elite Illuminati today. So the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, and believe me, there are news announcers in here, there are CEOs and, you know, very powerful people, not just presidents, that are all a part of this group. Whether liberal or conservative, they all play different parts, but it's all a big act. So, in mid-July each year, Bohemian Grove hosts a more than 2-week encampment of some of the most prominent men in the world. But what I was going to tell you is that, so they're all Masons, so they make their, they do their rituals and initiations to see who's going to be powerful in their temple. In this grove, they have their parties. Now, they talk business whenever they, probably every day of the year. So some of this is more like recreation and a way to get them on camera having lewd conduct or something. They could, if they ever tried to betray the club, the rich man's club, the elite, they have something on them. So going on, it says, the Bohemian Club is an all-male membership, includes artists and musicians. And by the way, why is it that all these feminists who are always taking people to court because they wouldn't let women in, right? The Girl Scouts wasn't allowed into the Boy Scouts or something. So they would take them to court. Why is it that Hillary Clinton and all these liberal, you know, Feinstein people in California and Pelosi, why aren't they taking the Bohemian Grove Club to court demanding that they should let women in? How is it that they just think it's wonderful? So it says, many prominent business leaders, government officials, former U.S. presidents, senior media executives, and people of power. Members may invite guests to the Grove. Guests may be invited only if they're invited. In other words, they have to talk it over with the elite to see if they're allowed in. But they will allow some guests, usually wives and some of the children of the elite. But they have to leave the Grove by, I think, 9 or 10 o'clock that night. So guests may be invited to the Grove for either the spring jinx. Jinx? Isn't that like a curse? But just with a better sounding word? They have a curse there? In June or in the main July encampment, Bohemian Club members can schedule private day use events. And it goes on and on and on, blah, 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 blah. Family and friends, although female minor guests must leave by 9 or 10. After 40 years of membership, the men earn old guard status. 40 years? Giving them reserved seating at the Grove's daily talks, as well as other prerequisites. Former U.S. President Herbert Hoover was inducted into the Old Guard on March 19, 1953. He had joined the club exactly 40 years previously. Redwood branches from the Grove were flown, get this, redwood branches, because this is in a redwood grove in California, from the Grove were flown to the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York City. Now, why is that important? Because the Waldorf Astoria Hotel was owned by the richest man in America, who was put on the Titanic and sunk. because there was a difference in their political views. So the rich fight and kill each other. They do have squabbles, and when they can't work it out, they just murder each other. But the Waldorf Astoria it's considered, if you look it up, it's considered the sort of like whoever owns that building owns, it's like the capital of New York City, which is like the capital of the business empire, Wall Street and that kind of thing. And so it's funny because Trump has a lot to do with all of this kind of thing. He purchased the Empire State Building. The Waldorf Astoria Hotel has a lot to do with the Empire State Building, and it's all the elite that own these great big buildings. And then when they own these buildings, they can basically say, I own the castle. I am the owner of the manor. I'm the boss. See, there's no way that Trump could get financing for the Trump Plaza across the street from the Rockefeller Plaza if he wasn't being financed by the very highest elite. So they take the Grove to the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, where they were used to decorate a banquet room for the celebration. So now we find out that the Grove is also Masonic, because they have a club that meets at a Masonic temple. But we also find out that they are considering themselves the rulers of the world, and they celebrate it at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, where Trump is a very big player. In his acceptance speech, Hoover compared the honor of the old guard status to his frequent role as veteran counselor to later presidents. Counselor. Now, what does that mean? It means that if you're a president, you can't just do what you want. You go to the club, they all talk it over. When Nixon was made president, he had gone to the Grove, the Bohemian Grove, and given a speech, and he said it was his best speech. He did so well at convincing them. They're supposed to give speeches to us, and we're supposed to vote them in, right? But that's not how it works. They give a speech before the brethren, the elite, and if the elite like them, and if their plans mesh with the elite's plans, and they've already discussed it, then they decide who's going to be the president there. So they've decided from that place, remember, Nixon was in on the meeting where they discussed the assassination of John F. Kennedy. So, what else have they done there? Well, it says, if you go down here where it says the Grove is particularly famous for a Manhattan Project planning meeting that took place there in September of 1942. Do you know what the Manhattan Project is, guys? Look at this. The Manhattan Project. It was a research and development undertaking during World War II that produced the first nuclear weapons. Guys, if you think that these guys were all getting together because they loved mankind, and we've got a race to get the nuclear weapon, or else Hitler will take over the world, and we're just good people trying to save the world. No. They were in on it with Hitler. That was a big scam. They never intended for anybody to win. They just put the power in the hands of partly in the Russians and partly with the Americans, and they took some of the scientists that were making all these, weapons against mankind from Germany, and then they took them to Russia and had a space program there, and we got a space program, and all these people were taking the Project Paperclip to these other countries, and they just continued on with their projects and operations. And so Fort Detrick's is where they continued on developing this pharmaceutical drugs and stuff that we're going through right now. But then they were doing the Manhattan Project. Their big project was to develop a nuclear weapon that would intimidate the world, and they could destroy anybody that, nobody could buy or sell among the nations unless they did what the council said, or else they'd nuke them. So it was led by the United States with the support of the United Kingdom and Canada. From 1942 to 1946, the project was under the direction of Major General Leslie Groves of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Nuclear physicist Robert Oppenheimer from Bavaria. My friends, just the same place where Trump is from, Bavaria. The same place that the Illuminati was created, where Adam Weishaupt created in 1776 the Illuminati. And so Robert Oppenheimer was the director of the Los Alamos Laboratory. I don't know if I ever told you guys, but some many years ago, I decided to go and do a little research on this Los Alamos Laboratory in New Mexico. You drive up there, it's out in the middle, it's up on a hill, you got to go wound around this long, windy 2-lane road. You finally get there, and it's like a little town up in the mountains, and the only people that really live there are people that work at this laboratory. And I didn't even really know what they were doing up there, right? It's something to do with nuclear, weapons and creating things and stuff. Well, all along the road, they had these signs saying, do not get out of your car. You couldn't get off the road. There was a fence along the road, and you couldn't cross the fence. There was signs saying $5,000 fine or 5 years in prison. Do not cross this line. So I got back in the car, and I drove in, kept driving, and got to this little town, and I stopped in the parking lot, and there was this grocery market. And I got out, and I asked this guy, I said, why are there all these signs along the road on the way up here saying, you can't walk through the woods, or it's kind of like a military base. They don't want you snooping around, right? I knew that, kind of. But I was like, okay, there's nothing out there but trees. Why do they not want you walking around? I thought it was because that you might sneak in and find out what they're doing, right? Well, the guy said, oh, don't go out there. That's all he would say. He just looked at me like, don't go out there, man. And later on, I found out they were using the excuse that there might be nuclear waste out there and you could get hurt. Well, I don't believe that. I think they don't want anybody sneaking around and investigating what they're actually doing. So I went home that week and got on the computer. As you know, I was I had a computer store, and I was a pretty good computer guy, a computer tech for a period of time. I had my own computer store and sold computers. And I got to looking around and thought, and I broke into the Los Alamos Laboratory, and I found documents that said that they were working on something called 666, or the Mark of the Beast. And at the time, I was so shocked, I tried telling a few people, and nobody would ever believe me, that they were planning, this whole nuclear bomb thing, that's over, right? This was in 1999 or 2000, I don't know, it wasn't that long ago, maybe 20 years ago. And so I doubt whether it's really about nuclear weapons at this point. What are these labs for that they're working around the clock there right now? Well, it has to do something with biotechnology. And they've been working on this for a long time. And they even use the term the beast, 666, and that kind of thing. So I read a bunch of the documents and looked over, and really at the time didn't really know what I was reading. What I now know after 20 years is exactly what we're going through right now. So they were designing actual bombs, and the Army component of the project was designated the Manhattan District, as its first headquarters were in Manhattan. The place name gradually superseded the official code name. So it says those attending this meeting included Ernest Lawrence, J. Robert Oppenheimer, the S1 Executive Committee heads such as the president of Harvard, Yale, and Princeton, along with representatives of Standard Oil and General Electric, as well as various military officials. At the time, Oppenheimer was not an S1 member, although Lawrence and Oppenheimer hosted the meeting. Grove members take particular pride in this event and often relate the story to new attendees. Other behavior at the campground has led to numerous claims and even some parody in popular culture. One example was President Richard Nixon's comments from May 13th, 1971. Tape recording talking about upper-class San Franciscans. Quote, Richard Nixon said, "The Bohemian Grove, which I attend from time to time, it is the most faggy goddamn thing you could ever imagine with that San Francisco crowd." So, if you read that, you'd think, oh, well, there was a few gay guys there, and they were being kind of silly, and they got drunk, and it was this, and he's just kind of, reminiscing about the old gay guys down at the old Grove, right? But there's more to this. There are lots of people who testify that the guys are running around naked. Remember, after 10 o'clock at night, there's only men there, and they're all running around naked, and they're drunk, and they're having orgies. And remember, Reagan is there, Nixon is there, George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush, on and on and on and on, and bankers and very powerful people. You guys have probably heard that Alex Jones crashed the place, snuck in, and took film footage of it. And it talks about that here. It says, on July 15th, 2000, Alex Jones and his cameraman, Mike Hansen, clandestinely entered Bohemian Grove and shot footage of the Cremation of Care ceremony. Jones claimed it was a ritual sacrifice. From this footage, documentary filmmaker John Ronson produced the episode The Satanic Shadowy Elite, in which he characterizes the proceedings as an overgrown frat party, while Jones produced dark secrets inside Bohemian Grove, describing what he thought were satanic rituals. Others have gone in, such as Richard McCaslin, who was arrested after his nighttime infiltration, and he set some fires. That was something that was in the news here for a while. Take a look at some of the people that, I guess there's about 2,500 people that are involved in this group. But here's some of the members back in the summer of 1967 at Owl's Nest Camp around the table. You see there, from left to right, Preston Hotchkiss, Ronald Reagan, you see him there on the left, Harvey Hancock, standing. Who's Harvey Hancock? Let's take a look at that. George Harvey Hancock, known as Harvey Hancock, was an aviation executive and journalist. A journalist? Who served as the Northern California campaign manager for Richard Nixon's successful 1950 United States Senate race. And then the 1952 general election won by Dwight D. Eisenhower and Nixon. These guys are all together, getting each other elected and making deals before they were ever elected. So, his occupation is executive journalist and political consultant. Executive journalist. You see, the journalists or the media, they're in bed with the elite. And we're told that they're there to monitor the presidents and the CEOs, but they're not. They're simply bed brothers. So then we have, after Harvey Hancock standing, we have Richard Nixon. We all know who he is. And then Glenn T. Seaborg. Jack Sparks. Who's Glenn T. Seaborg? Let's take a look at that one. Glenn Theodore Seaborg. Died in 1999, was an American chemist whose involvement in the synthesis, discovery, and investigation of 10 transuranium elements earned him a share of the 1951 Nobel Prize in Chemistry. His work in this area also led to his development of the actinide concept and the arrangement of the actinide series in the periodic table of the elements. All right. Why is it that the highest, most powerful people in the world, you would think it would be presidents, that would be powerful, right? Journalists, CEOs of journalists, CNN, Fox News, things like that, Rupert and all these people, Murdoch. Okay, you kind of get that, right? So they've got the media, but they've also got chemists. So why? Well, they got people that are raping the world of the oil, that people that are working on the Manhattan Project for nuclear weapons, not for world peace. They're trying to kill us. And what do you think these chemists are doing? Synthesizing chemicals, right? Isn't that like Monsanto and Johnson & Johnson and things like that? What are they making all of the pharmaceutical drugs for? Oh, well, Dave, they're trying to help us. No, it's a gene therapy. No, excuse me. It's a gene destruction that they're after. Jack Sparks, Kevin Zinter, and Edwin W. Paulie. Let me see who that guy is. Edwin W. Paulie, early life, born in Indianapolis to Albert L. Paulie and former Ellen Van Pitten. He attended Occidental College in Northeast Los Angeles during 1919-1920 before transferring to the University of California, Berkeley, where he was a member of Phi Kappa Psi fraternity, earning a Bachelor of Science in 1922 and the Master of Science the following year. His business career, he made a fortune running oil companies from the mid-1920s onward. He founded the Petrol Company in 1923, president of the Fortuna Petroleum in 1933, Coconut Island in Hawaii and a private retreat. Several of his deals involved Zapata Corporation run by George A.W. Bush. Oh, well, they were like business partners. Now you get it. These are all brothers in crime. And they're all working on either trying to become president, so they're trying to keep a straight face and tell the world, hey, we're helping you, right? They're liars, in other words, lawyers, liars. Or they're working on chemicals that can destroy us, or nuclear things that will destroy us, or, you guessed it, the thing. So it talks about 1958, he founded Paulie Petroleum, which with Howard Hughes expanded the oil production in the Gulf of Mexico. Howard Hughes? Oh my goodness. Oh, politics. Pauline became involved with the Democratic Party. Oh my goodness. Well, so he's best buddies with the Republican George H.W. Bush, but he runs the Democratic Party. So these Bohemian people, they run the elite. They run both parties. Are you getting this? In 1940, he served as a member of the Interstate Oil and Compact Commission. He was a friend and confidant of the U.S. Senator Harry S. Truman. Well, I thought Truman was a good guy. I guess not. Oh, and then there was, and through Truman's influence, President Franklin D. Roosevelt appointed Paulie as petroleum coordinator of the Lend-Lease supply. See, why do they point each other into positions of power? Well, because they all met at the Grove or at the Masonic Hall, and they've already planned this all out. You have no say. So then we've got in the Insider, businessmaninsider.com, it says that, talking about this Bohemian Club, it says it's a shadowy and a controversial secret club that meets in the California woods every year, and at least 5 U.S. presidents were members. Well, that's not true. All of the presidents were members. And it says that the Bohemian Grove grounds are dotted with camps bearing strange names. Mandalay makes this big tower in Las Vegas. You know, like Trump's building towers and Rockefeller's building towers and stuff. They love doing that. One's called Lost Angeles. One's called the Isles of Avs and Silverado Squatters. I know one's called the Hillbillies. That's not written here, but that's the group that George H.W. Bush was in, I believe. But it says women and minors must vacate the premises and da-da-da-da. But it says the tradition goes back to the earliest days of the Private Gentlemen's Club, which sprang up in 1872 in San Francisco. The Bohemian Club began renting the campground for an annual retreat before purchasing it outright in 1899. See, I wonder if that's why all that, this whole gay movement got started in San Francisco, I believe. Or at least that was one of the areas where it had a certain hub of influence. And it's because the elite encouraged it, the powerful Bohemian Grove elite were encouraging this kind of debauchery. And then they get up on the platform like Nixon and Reagan and act like they're so conservative and moral, right? Originally a cluster of newspaper writers who adopted a bohemian lifestyle, the club expanded over time to include artists, businessmen, military leaders. Oh, they make it sound like they expanded to include artists. No, we're not talking about artists. We're talking about high-level Masonic artists, like, Leonardo da Vinci, who was putting codes into his paintings. We're talking about, remember, these guys are in Hollywood, these elite people are in the movies. That's propaganda. So they don't allow movies and books and things like that to be published in the world without all that stuff secretly being propaganda and being authorized by the elite. So it says, while the club is diversified in terms of its members, professions, women have been barred from joining since its inception. Like I said, if these guys were really into feminism and the rights of women and stuff, they wouldn't be doing this. This is all a big farce where they want us, we the people, to do things that they're not willing to do. They're racists. You don't see any black people there, do you? And they're homophobes, or they're all homosexuals. I guess they're heterophobes. But they're the ones who start all the trouble in the world and pervert our minds and then go to parties and pat each other on the back and say, hey, we must not be all bad. We're the president and we've got all the power in the world after all. And by the way, we're going to do this ceremony, this religious ceremony where we're going to sacrifice a human being to an owl in the middle of the woods. And that's somehow going to take away all your sins, all your cares. So it says, G. William Dumhoff, a University of California, Santa Cruz professor emeritus of psychology and sociology, has studied the Bohemian Club extensively. In a post on the site Who Rules America, he described the Grove as a place where the powerful relax, enjoy each other's company. Yeah, they really do enjoy each other's company too. It says, on Gawker, Sophie Weiner also described her own stint working as a dining server at the Grove in 2016. She described the retreat as a place where the elite could engage in behavior that doesn't usually fly for people of their stature in the regular world. Yeah, wouldn't that be quite the thing to see Reagan running around naked and George W. Bush, behind the bushes? I don't know if that would startle you, but it would me. It says, while many politicians have attended Bohemian Grove functions, the number of presidents who were actually club members is seemingly greatly overstated. Really? Seemingly? Why don't you use the word actually? Because you're lying, huh? Calvin Coolidge and Gerald Ford, for example, are often erroneously cited as members. Dumhoff concluded, I don't know why they're lying like that, because other places they tell you that every president for the past 100 years has been a member of this. Doesn't matter whether Republican or Democrat. Well, I don't know if Trump was ever a member of this group. And I was about to say that earlier, that I think the reason why Trump does not have any records being in these groups is because they had planned. Remember, Nixon said Trump would be the president of the United States. So I think they had planned on making Trump the last president. Remember, there was actually a book written in something like 1800 about Donald Trump being the last president of the United States. And friends, I believe that's going to happen. Trump will be reelected. So it says the Grove encampment is a bunch of guys kidding around, drinking with their buddies, trying to relieve their youth and often acting very silly, he wrote. Acting very silly? Well, that's a very nice way of saying they're a bunch of evil, wicked, disgusting individuals who are running around doing nasty, terrible things. And these are the people deciding our future and deciding who's going to be our president, make our policies in the world, and tell us what we can and cannot do. Says Theodore Roosevelt was granted honorary club membership when he became president. In a brief 1903 letter to Bohemian Club member Edgar Pexot, he expressed gratitude for the honor conferred upon him. He also offered his regrets that he could not make it to the club function. And here it says, in Ike and Dick, Portrait of a Strange Political Marriage, Jeffrey Frank writes, Hoover always treasured his membership and was avid about scouting out new club recruits. In 1950, he invited then Congressman Richard Nixon on a trip to the Bohemian Grove. They make it sound like, well, they just invited him and he, that's how he became a member. Why, he's not, they didn't really know each other. He's just like, well, he became popular and they said, hey, why don't you come and join? No, this is an elite group of people. Nixon would never have become president if he hadn't have been one of the elite before he ever went to this club. The reason they go to the club is because it's time for them to become a president or be involved in part of, policy and planning the demise of the world. And when they're plotting and planning this demise, they give them a little few kickbacks and some parties along the way, like a business would do with the people that work for him. If they've done a good job, he'll have a party once a year in Christmas or something like this. So this is kind of what it is. It's like all the elite who are trying to destroy us, they all have a party and then have a satanic sacrifice to Satan. Now, some say it's just an effigy, but I don't know why we would trust them. Why would we believe that? They don't let anybody in there. They won't show us pictures. I hear screaming. So, somebody said, well, whoever they were burning, it didn't look like they were, trying to get up. We don't know. You can't hardly see it. Maybe they're strapped down. You can hear somebody screaming. But come on, even if they're just mocking a human sacrifice, think about why these elite individuals that run our world need to go to this special retreat every year and mock up a human sacrifice, which they claim is going to take away their sins. What sins? In other words, and they don't even use the word sin because they don't think it's sin. They don't think it's wrong or a mistake. They're just getting rid of their cares. See, the cremation of care. So they don't care anymore, guys. According to the book Kennedy, Johnson, and the Non-Aligned World, Nixon delivered a lakeside speech to his fellow club members in July of 1967. He outlined his ideas on American foreign policy in what he called the first milestone on my road to the presidency. Domhoff wrote that Nixon also got verbal confirmation from club guest Ronald Reagan that he would not challenge him in the Republican primary that year. See, they had it all worked out, and you thought you voted in Ronald Reagan. Not so. You thought they didn't like each other, they pretended that they were of a different party and they had disagreements. They had settled on what they were going to do in the world before they even became president. It says Ronald Reagan was officially inducted into the Bohemian Club in 1975, the year before he tossed his hat into the 1976 presidential campaign. He belonged to the Owl's Nest camp. That sounds like a very prestigious camp. The Owl's Nest, right? That's like right where the owl nests. right? This whole thing is about this owl, this Bohemian Grove. So, looks like Reagan was one of the high elites. He shared with execs from the United Airlines and a number of other companies that were powerful in the 1970s. During the 1980 presidential election, Reagan avoided the Bohemian Grove because he thought it might be an embarrassment to our fellow Bohemians because of the round-the-clock surveillance by the press. They camp down at my driveway these days, according to Reagan, A Life in Letters. So Reagan said, look, I would have gone every year. Like, I'm a faithful member. But, hey, I'm going to pretend. I don't want the public to think I'm actually a member of the secret group, right? So I've got to, I've got to play the part. This is all a big act. In his Spy magazine expose, Weiss reported that he was able to meet with Reagan in the Owl's Nest camp. In the Spy magazine expose, Weiss reported that he was able to meet with Reagan in the Owl's Nest camp. Right in the nest of the owl. They made some small talk, and Reagan offhandedly confirmed that he had assured Nixon he wouldn't challenge him outright for the Republican nomination. Weiss wrote that Reagan gave the Lakeside talk that year and took questions from club members afterwards. See, the reason he was elected is because they decided these guys would be president, and then they did the mock election, and we thought we voted him in. They had already decided. So it says, from club members afterwards, during which he called for 4-year terms for Congress members and greater regulations of the press. George H.W. Bush bunked with the executives from influential companies. George H.W. Bush joined the club in 1973. See, these people must have been very, very, very best buddies. Because remember, Reagan and Nixon and W.H. Bush were all, H.W. Bush was Reagan's vice president. So they had already worked this out. And they knew, and then he was the chief of the CIA. So they put people in these positions of power that are willing to carry out their agenda. And friends, then the agenda was World War II and the Manhattan Project, and now guess what it is? You guessed it. So Bush belonged to the camp called the Hillbillies. That's interesting. Hillbillies, along with top executives from Bank of America, General Motors, and Procter & Gamble. Bush also brought along a future president as a guest on one trip to the Bohemian Grove. He introduced his son, George W. Bush, at a Lakeside talk in 1995, saying that he'd make a great president. Oh, and guess what? He then became president. Isn't that just sweet? So, what does this tell us? The Bohemian Grove tells us a lot. It tells us that Democrats and Republicans, they're in it together. They're planning world events. They have planned world events. World War II, nuclear weapons. Now, if you believe what you're told, that, we had to have nuclear weapons because, after all, Hitler had them. Remember, it was Prescott Bush, George H.W. Bush's father, who was the principal, the principal American financier of Hitler in the war. And it was Hitler's chemists, it was his doctors, it was his tech people, it was his generals, it was his people that were, as soon as they abruptly said, the war's over, we in America started up with these projects and operations, which the Germans had been doing, calling them operations and projects. And they had this Project Manhattan right at the end of the war, just when the Germans stopped using the term. And, Project Paperclip and all these things that you've heard about. This is not something that was organized by Hitler, World War II. It was organized by the elite world bankers, by the elite world media, by the elite world scientists, who are all brothers and sisters, part of a club that is not something you can join. You have to be born into it. And these are the people. They have their own agenda. They are atheists. They don't believe in any divine being, but they do believe that they are better than you are. And they have a plan. And friends, this is real. And I just thought you ought to know. So I'm probably just going to have and leave it there. We're well over an hour. And we'll get back to you tomorrow. Have a good one.